My name is Seun Olayiwola. I basically work at the intersection of growth, product, and marketing. I'm basically like a marketing analyst, right? I like data, I like playing around with data, understanding how users interact with products throughout their lifetime journey. And these days, I also moonlight as a great product manager, right? Also trying to drive user engagement and use big data to sort of hack growth across platforms as well. Um, Today we'll be uh, going through product analytics, right? Use cases, applications, tools, how to get insight, measurement, events, cohorts, right? Some of these concepts might sound new, not to worry. In a couple of minutes, we would have said these words so many times that we would all sort of become familiar with it, right? Yeah. So, first off, right, for today, we're going to be looking at introduction to product analytics, right? The learning objectives, right? How does it work? How does it help your product grow? What are the popular tools, and how do you track and how do you implement effectively, right? In such a way that you can effectively measure, not just measure now, measure and monitor what users are doing on your product. So I think before we start talking about product analytics, we should touch base with analytics itself first, right? And analytics is basically a process. We should know that there's a simple distinction between analysis and analytics, right? Uh, we're not going to go into data analysis now. We're focusing clearly on product analytics and analytics generally. It's basically a process where we have an objective, or we have a business question, or we have a problem. Let's say users are downloading our app. I think that we can have an exercise where we are going to use like a random app. Let's say the name of this app is the Fit Farm app. It's a product, right? And this Fit Farm product has apps available on the Play Store for Android, iOS, and it's also available on the web as well, right? I'm just trying to give us some sort of background story for these products that we'll be using today as a point of reference, right? So this Fit Farm product is a Fit Farm product basically, right? It helps you track what you're doing, your activities. It helps you stay fit. It helps you, monitor and regulate. It's your healthy lifestyle or physical fitness accountability partner. That's what this app is about. And the problem we have with this app is that people are downloading the app and they are not able to complete their registration, right? So here now, the business problem is we're having a lot of downloads or installations, right? But they're not registering. So analytics comes in here now to solve this problem and say, how many downloads have we had in within this particular time period, and how many registrations have we had, right? And you are able to measure that simple drop off, right? Like I say, we have 100,000 downloads and only 50,000 registered users. So that means that we have clearly used simple maths, maybe subtraction, to answer a business problem. That is, we have a lot of registrations, we have a lot of downloads, but we are not getting as many registrations. What's the difference? Why is it happening? And then we now start looking at other relevant metrics that we can use to, give us more context as to why this is happening. And that's why we have analytics. It just takes a simple business problem or a product problem or a marketing problem generally and try to sort of use data or statistical methods to reach a decision or to support a decision, right? So for this registration challenge now, we can say that after much analysis, we discovered that users that let's say users that were not able to register were using a particular type of phone, right? we also discovered that users that were not able to register were using a particular mobile network, and that's why they were unable to receive, say, OTPs, for example, to complete their registration. So with that, right, we would have been able to use the data to look at what we have in order to solve the problem of where we're going to, right? And that way you'll be able to write a recommendation to, as a product manager, to maybe your, what do I say, product lead, or even writing requirements for engineers now, because it's now based on actual data. You know why this is happening, you know where these drop-offs are coming from, and you are now coming up with a data-driven decision to sort of optimize this, right? And that's analytics basically in a nutshell. Um, However, product analytics is basically using data, right, to tell stories about how people interact with our products, right? For two things basically. For one, to give them a better experience, right? We want people to use these products, that's the products we're using in question today, that's the fifth format. We want people to enjoy it. We want people to get value from it, and that way they can keep on being subscribers, right? That's something I also going to touch base on. And also, most importantly, product managers, growth marketers, digital marketers, product marketers, technical PM. At the end of the day, right, business metrics is super important for everybody. It's not just important for people in business alone or people in marketing. It's important that these businesses are basically in it to uh, sort of gain some revenue, right? So it's also important that we are abreast of the business and we're very business aware, either as a product manager or as a product marketing manager or as a growth or a digital marketing person. It's important that you're very business aware. You know the direction where the business is going, you know the challenges of the business, and you know what the business is trying to achieve. Are we trying to raise the next series, right? Are we trying to raise funding? What milestones have we set? Are we looking to acquire 3,000 users? And all of those things is super important, right? For everyone that's working with the digital products, right? You have to be business aware, and you also have to prioritize or be aware of the user experience as well, right? Because that's what will keep people, right, keep using your product specifically. Um, the next one step is we're going to be looking at how does product analytics fit into your funnel, right? When users download, say, the FitFarm app for the first time, right? Or even before they download it, say they saw an ad or a Google app that was being deployed via different marketing channels, for example, right? Um, from that point on, where users are still getting awareness about the product, right? We already should start tracking, right? I'm going to say tracking a lot. We already should start tracking the relevant metrics, right? And user actions that matter at that particular stage of the funnel, right? From when when users are trying to learn about the product, they're interacting with the ads, for example, with marketing campaigns, you are already sort of measuring and tracking that, right? And when they now eventually, try out the product, say for the FitFarm app now, they finally saw after so many social media stuff, marketing campaigns, they finally downloaded the app, right? And they're now trying out the product. At that point as well, right, it's important that you're also, tracking and you're measuring, right? Because it's important for us to know the flow, right? From when they become aware to when they acquire to when they're activated to when they become paying customers and to when they continue the payment and so forth, right? It's important that we understand where product analytics, right, fits into this stage of the funnel. It's also super easy to confuse product analytics with marketing analytics, right? Because if you think about it, it's basically like both marketing analytics and even product analytics. We are tracking the same events, right? Or trying to track the same user actions. In the next slide, I will also talk about events because that's something that's super important, right? For or any form of analytics now in digital products, right? You have to track events. So at this stage of the funnel, right, at every stage of the funnel, there are user actions, right, that drive value to the business that we want to measure. And that these user actions is what we call events, right? I know for some people you would have heard about event tracking, Google Analytics for privacy issues, and a lot of the reasons why event-based tracking, right, makes sense for a lot of businesses now, especially like digital products and conversion or subscription products that have like a subscription type model, is basically because you're able to track actions. You're able to track and measure what users are doing on your app or on your website. And you are now able to contextually now name these events. So say acquisition, for example, right? An event could be app installed, right? You want to know how many users have taken that action. So you are measuring that and you have your app installed events, right? At the stage of activation, right? Activation here basically means the first time the user does something of value to your business, right? In this context, post installation for the FitFarm app, the next step for the user is to register, right? Registration is super important for a lot of products because this is at this stage, this is where you collect primary user data, right? So product analytics, we're also looking at two different things, right? We're talking about events, that's user actions, right? That they can take on your app. And then we're also now looking at user data. That's my name is Seun Olayiwola. I am male, for example, and say I am 45, right? For the FitFarm app, that four those four data points are very important. First name, last name, age, gender, and email address, right? At that point where I provide all of this information to on the app, when I complete this registration, I have done the very first thing that matters to the business, and that's provide information. Because with this personal data that I've given to FitFarm app, they now know a bit more about me, right? And they might be able to also, segment, right? And position and provide me value offerings that make sense based on my user data, based on the data that they have on me, right? At the revenue point, it's for a lot of businesses or products nowadays are subscription driven. By subscription driven, I mean think YouTube Premium, Spotify, Apple Music, basically any Netflix, basically any type of digital product that you use that you have to be on a monthly or weekly or annual, any tenure, any type of periodic payment in between that you have to continue to subscribe to enjoy premium features, right? At that point when the users pay first, or even if it's not a subscription business, if it's like e-commerce where users can just come on your website, on your app and order stuff, right? The moments where they make the first successful order, or the moments where they have completed successful orders, right? Right. And that is when you also want to sort of track and measure what users have done at that point. So again, it's also important that the type of business that you have, right? The type of service that you render and the type of business model that you have for your product is what's important for tracking, because events tracking, user tracking is very contextual, right? No two businesses or two products, even if they are similar, can have the same, would I say, product analytics setup or implementation or system. It has to be super contextual, even based on the product flow and the product design of your apps themselves, because it's the product design that will determine where users will click this and say complete order, or where users will pay, right? And also retention is where, say for e-commerce, I come back and make another order, for example, then you also want to track repeated orders, right? Is this the first time this person is ordering? Is it the second time? And for subscription-based businesses, you also want to track renewals, right? Because at this point, when I've paid for my first month, right, the time I paid for the second month, I have now done a renewal. So all of these events, they are contextual. They are based on what users do on your product, right? And also for referrals, say this app, FitFarm app, is so great. I have a shareable link on the app where I can just click on share and I send a dynamic link to my friend via WhatsApp, right? My friend, I use an Android phone. My friend uses an iOS phone, right? I create a dynamic link and I share it to my friend, and my friend clicks on it and installs the iOS version of the FitFarm app on his phone. And that I, on my own beats, like as the first user that shared the link, I would have triggered a referral event and said maybe refer the friend, right? All of these events, as you can see, if stored, collected, and analyzed properly, can give you insight into my journey into the FitFarm app. From the type of ads that I use to download the app, did I convert from a Google ad or from Instagram, right? Then post installation, how long did it take me to register? How long did it take me to pay? Did I renew my subscription when I was supposed to? Did I delay or defer any payment? And how many times have I referred the product to my friends, right? All of these things will give context into my personal journey, that's Seun's journey on the app. That way you're measuring all my actions and you're matching them to my user data, and you're able to, visualize and do reports and now make better decisions that will give me a better personalized experience on the FitFarm app. Yeah. So basically here, right, every trackable interaction creates a data point, right? And every data point tells a piece of the customer story. Like for everyone, I know that a lot of companies now are big on privacy, and even companies like Google are sunsetting universal analytics because it just seems to collect every and any data on users, right? And globally, tracking tech is moving away from universal analytics, tracking your sessions and cookies and all of that, into a more event-based or user action-based system where once you carry out an action on the app, like on Spotify, I listen to a music, right? I would have started an event, say music played or track played, right? If I listen to an album, I would have started an event named album started. If I finished listening to the album, I could have triggered another event named album completed, right? All of these events give insight into me now as a Spotify user. How many artists do I listen to? How many albums have I finished? How many songs have I finished? Do I finish my songs? Do I listen to new songs? How do I interact with the products, right? And even on a feature level, for example, like say FitFarm app has different features, right? You can also effectively measure how I interact with each of these different features in their feature groups, right? A lot of product has different features, right? You also want to track events within a feature group so you can know if that feature is being adopted, how many people are using it, and if people are enjoying the feature without necessarily having to, deploy a poll or a survey, right? Polls and surveys are great, but events just lets you see what everybody is doing, right? Okay. I think it's also important to know that for a lot of marketing or growth inclined people and product people, there is a slight distinction between product analytics and marketing analytics, right? For marketing analytics, for product analytics, rather, it's more user focused, as I said, right? It's more trying to follow the user throughout the app. Is more granular because it's specific to me, right? To what I'm doing on the FitFarm app. Like for a lot of apps would have unique user IDs, right? Because I'm not the only Seun Olayiwola in the whole world, right? Even for my emails, it may not be unique, right? But for products, right, digital products, it's often best practice to generate unique user IDs for all the users. So that way you can effectively follow them and attribute events that they are taking on your actions to each of these user IDs, right? and it's also more granular focused. Like it's also down to what button you clicked on the app, right? It's down to how many times did you use the back button, how many times did you use this feature, because you can not only track events, you can also track touch points as well, like how many times did this user touch this button, for example. Um, Lower level focus, as I've said, because it's more focused on personal experience. It's more focused on how a particular person is interacting with the whole product, right? And of course, it's often geared towards product improvement, giving people a better experience. What feature should we launch next? What feature should we sunset? And for marketing analytics, it's more channel focused. Like we're running ads for Google, for Instagram, Criteo, retargeting, which of these channels optimize, which of these channels give us the best conversions, is a lot more higher level, because you're looking at people in groups, you're looking at people based on source and medium of acquisition or source and medium of referral, right? It's a lot more high level. Of course, it's upper funnel as well, because it's geared towards acquisition and getting people back and stuff like that. And the goal here is just to optimize ROI or ROAS. ROI is return on investment, and ROAS is return on ad spend, right? Because marketing is basically just spending money on advertising, right? And marketing people are very much concerned with uh, how much am I spending, how much value am I getting, are people converting and whatnot. Um, yeah, so I mean, that basically, summarizes uh, the first two modules, right, where we were introduced to, product marketing, product analytics, the distinctions between product analytics and marketing analytics, tracking user data, and then tracking user actions as events, and also just a brief sort of intro on analytics as itself, use cases, and a lot of other things, right? Hi, Shino, my name is Damilola. At the early stage of a product, what events are important to track? So, as I've said, to answer this, Damilola, event tracking is very contextual, right? You have to seriously look at your product and say, uh, how do users sign up for my product? What what defines the early stage of my products? What's the user journey like at the stage of my product, right? Here, when I'm trying to work on events tracking or build a sort of events tracking schema, right? Um, I would often work with product designers, right? Uh, to look at the user journey or the user flow from the product design stage, and look at um, what possible actions, right, can these users take. Now, I also think that it's important for me to ask that at the early stage of the product, right, Damilola, it's it's still vague, right? The early stage of the product, is it before they install your app? Is it an app? Is it a product that has an application? Is it a product that has just a website? But regardless of your stack, regardless of how your product is set up, regardless of the platforms that your product is presently available on, it is important to look at your product flow, right? Look at the design and think what uh, what user actions, right? Um, what user actions would give value to my product? Like if this user clicks on this button, what does it mean for the product? What does it mean for the business? If it's a button that says sign up, for example, you want to track that action and say user signed up, right? If it's something that it's registration, for example, you also want to track that event registered, right? User registered. If it's something that says if they have to agree to something before they use your app, right? If it's not something that, if it's something that you deploy from within your product, like a product-led initiative, right? The users have to take an action on it at the early stages. You have to also sort of track that, right? Someone else says, okay. You see, what Excel functions must a product analyst be very good at or conversant with. So Excel, right, is a general tool. Like it's a yes, Damilola, actually, you're correct. A tracking plan based off the product design, the entire user journey from the beginning to the end. You're tracking all the actions, all the data points, and we'll still talk about attributes as we move forward as well. So that I give you context about user data, user actions, as events and attributes or properties or user properties. Back to Excel. So Excel is a very wide tool, right? I can't say that you have to use this particular function or you must be good at doing VLOOKUPs or you must be great at doing pivot tables, for example, right? But if you ask me, again, this is contextual. It depends on type of data that you're interacting with. If it's big data, you may not even be able to use Excel. You might want to use a visualization tool, say Tableau or Power BI. If it's like data that can be contained within a sheet, right? You would use Excel for that. But again, it's like, what analysis are you trying to do? What business question are you trying to answer? And that's what determines what Excel functions you would have to use, because there are like millions, a lot of Excel functions solving different things. But if you ask me, I don't use Excel that much anymore, right? But at the same time, I think pivot tables are great. I think that being able to clean data in Excel is a fundamental that everybody should be able to do, right? Just get data and clean it in Excel. Someone else says, when monitoring user sessions, how do you filter and prioritize the sessions to track? So when you mean user sessions, I have a question for this. Do you mean user sessions from Universal Analytics, for example, right? By user sessions, a session is triggered, say, when a user starts your app or when they launch something on your app, right? How do you prioritize or filter or prioritize sessions to track? For sessions, right? Uh, as I've said, like globally, the in the digital space, we're moving away from sessions, clicks, and all of that to events, right? So if your sessions may not give you context as to what users are really doing, because every user, once they launch your app or they land on your website, they start a session, right? But what would give you more context would be events and how users are moving through your app, basically. Um, what's the best tool for product analytics? There is really no best tool. It depends on the budget. It depends on your marketing or your product stack and the platforms that you are available on. What should be the takeaway from heat maps? So from heat maps, the takeaway should be that you looking at part of your screen, right? If it's an app or if it's a website, you're looking at part of the website that users touch the most. That you're looking at part of the website or your app on your screen that users interact with the most, right? So what you want to optimize for is you want to put a button there, for example. Are there buttons where users are not clicking on? You might want to move. For me, each map is just about optimizing actionable positions, right? You want to optimize where things should be. You want to make sure that places that is convenient for the users to touch is where you put your buttons. If users on your app are constantly interacting with the upper right part of the app, you would know that for some reason, when users come to your app, they think that where they should uh, perform an action or complete something or confirm something is always on their right. You might want to optimize or test for button positions in that space, right? You might also want to take away important actions from areas that get least engagement on a particular screen. And as a rule of thumb, I try to ensure that on product designs as well, you don't have too many actions or too many buttons for users to click within a particular screen on the app or on the website. If I have too many buttons to click, I will have too many options and it take me more time to make a decision, right? So the takeaway for that is just engagement optimization, button positioning, and optimization, basically. So what platform should a startup have to be able to monitor and generate adequate and sufficient data that is also cost effective. This is a tricky one. I would say first and foremost, when we go over product analytics tools, right? I would say first and foremost, Google Analytics, right? Google Analytics, not just Universal Analytics now, Google Analytics 4, right? It gives you insights on event data, user data, sessions, everything you need, right? And uh, combined with say a tool like Google Tag Manager, right? You would be able to uh, deploy a uh, cost-effective tools or platforms that would help you measure user data and monitor what users are doing on your app in a way that is also cost-effective. Google Firebase is also a great platform, specifically designed for mobile applications and for tracking what users are doing, especially if you have applications, Android apps or iOS apps. And it's great for websites as well. Someone says, can MA collect user feedback across channels? If it can, does it become product analytics? If this data is collected to improve the product or user experience? I'll need this person, this is the last question. I'll need this person to tell me what they mean by MA because I'm not sure what MA is in this context. Now, can a marketing analyst collect user feedback across channels? If it can, does it become product analytics if the data is used to improve the product or user experience? The second part of your question, right? Product analytics is the use case, right? If you have data and you are using that data to improve experience or make your app better for other people, then you have done some sort of product analytics, right? Now, can a marketing analyst get user feedback across channels, relay this feedback to the product team, and the product team now implement some of these feedback and these changes? Would I say that is product analytics? Yeah, in a way it is, right? However, fundamentally, as I said, product analytics is more focused on the granular stuff, like um, and things that users do on the product itself, right? Yeah, that that's product analytics itself. Like its focus is more on the user actions that they take by themselves, right? Collecting feedback is more of an optimization thing, right? If you do now share with the product team and they're able to now implement this feedback, I mean, that's great. You can say that it's an application of product analytics itself, right? How does one use Firebase? Can you take time to explain? Ha, I don't think that this time will be sufficient enough for me to walk you through using Firebase, setting it up, right? But I'm sure that it's a Google product. It's basically Google Analytics for applications, right? And they have great documentation, and you can also check out their YouTube as well. You'll see a lot of videos on how to set up Firebase and how to use Firebase for your product as well. So we're just going to move for the second bit of this. In the absence of any other questions, someone says, what should be considered? What should be considered while analyzing data to carry out feasibility study on a new product? This is very tricky. This is really not, it's not product analytics per se. This is more question for like feasibility studies or when you're trying to develop go-to-market strategies and all of that, right? The focus here for us is product analytics and how we can use it to measure or to hack product growth, right? Perhaps we'll have another session where we'll talk about doing like some initial research for a new product and all of that. But for this particular class, it's more on like optimizing data to sort of grow your product. So I'm going to move to the second part, right, of this, and we're going to be looking at how product analytics can help your product grow. So I'm just going to share my screen for the second part of this, and after this part, we'll talk about I'll take time to explain like attributes, and at this point on, I would now just take your questions, and you guys can just like ask me as much questions as you can, things that you don't understand, and we can just go over it. If you have like specific use cases, parts that you don't understand, I want to engage rather than just be talking from a slide. Right? I think it's better that way, and that way I get to learn from you guys as well. So I'm sharing my screen again for the second part of this masterclass. Now we're moving to how can product analytics help your product grow, right? Um, it's very simple, really, and information. That's how we can help your product grow. Uh, what do you need to solve a problem? Like, look at Nigeria, for example. Say we want to solve some of the biggest problems in Nigeria as a product. If you think about it like that, what we need first is to gather information. What's working, what's not working, how do we measure this? And that's where analytics comes in, because you are basically following your users throughout the journey on your product, right? You know when they signed up, you know how many people, how many things they've done. And as we move on in this, you would see one very important thing about product analytics, and that's one of the best things I like about it. It gives you clear information that you can use now. Now I know I'm not talking about this like in in terms of raw data, right? Because you already set up a strategy to collect data. You already looked at your product flow. You already worked with your product team and your product designers to track all the actions already. So you already have data, right? In the event that you have been able to deploy and implement this sort of tracking schema, right? You've looked at your product flow, you've worked with your product designers and product managers and even your business team to measure everything that is important for everybody, right? So you're already collecting all of this data one way or another. Maybe you have a CRM or you have a customer data platform. You would also have like databases and all of these things. And all of these are like data storage and data collection tools for your app. But once you have an app, you can basically track and record what everybody is doing on your app. Because by when people download your app, they give you consent to say, yes, I want to use your product. So, I mean, the least you can do is study how people use your products. And that's what product analytics does for you. It gives you insights as to how people are interacting with your products and what they are doing. So when you've already built this schema, you've implemented it, you've worked with the devs, you've done everything you need to do, you are now at the information stage, right? Because that's what it's supposed to do. Product analytics is supposed to give you information that will help you grow your product. And how does it help your product grow? Gives you information. Next slide. Yeah. So again, right? Here is how uh, it helps your product grow, because product analytics, it helps you learn how users are using your products, right? You see specifically like what they are doing on your products. You see when they are doing it, how they are doing it, and what they are doing. Because with events and user properties and attributes, you can also add timestamps, for example. So you can say that you can know when this user paid first, when they paid second time, when they paid third time, and that way you are following them throughout their journey on the app, basically, right? And it also sort of gives you more context, so you know how they are using it, you know what features they like the most. You can have a new feature for something, maybe users are not using it, so this will sort of help you measure and track effectively, right? Something else that is important, it helps you identify drop-offs in product funnels, right? So product funnels basically is, um, would I say, a chronological or a sequential flow or the journey that users take on your product. Say, post installation for the Fit Farm app again, right? After you've installed it, you've registered, right? That's the first step. You install the app, you register. The next thing you probably do is maybe start an exercise, right? Maybe on the app, we have videos and stuff that you can use to exercise, right? Maybe you pick a particular exercise journey, right? And you start with that. Say, I want to work on my abs or something like that. Then you start doing that, right? So that event is also loved, like exercise practice started or something like that. So what product analytics help us do is first it helps us outline the product flow from product design stage, right? We outline the product flow. And when we are looking at the data now, we already know the optimal flow to which we expect users to move as they're interacting with the app, right? At the moment the user does something that is not chronological or is not sequential, right? Or maybe they start something and they did not finish it, right? With product analytics, you can measure those drop-offs. How many people registered but did not start an exercise? Maybe the very first thing users can do on your app is to start an exercise. That's on the fifth number, start an exercise. How many people registered and did not start an exercise, right? And how long does it take for people to register between when people register and when they do take their first action, that's to start an exercise, right? Now, product analytics will help you see the people that are in between these people, like the people that that registered and they also uh, started an exercise, right? And the people that registered but did not start an exercise. And that's important because for the people that did not start an exercise, right? You also want to know why. Why did they not start an exercise? What's happening, right? And for a lot of other businesses, you also want to be able to, now set up automation. This is where like growth marketing people will be happy because at this point, you'll now be able to set up an automation and say, uh, if you have a marketing automation tool, you can say for people that started, if anyone registered but did not start their exercise, right? Then send them this message so you can just nudge them, right? And it also allow you measure the average time it takes people from registration to when they start their first exercise. So that way you can spot average behavior, right? And know that when people register, when they download the app, once they register, it takes them like 5 minutes before they start using it on an average. You looked at thousands of users and the average time to first exercise is say 20 minutes. Now, anybody that spends uh, way more than 20 minutes, right? Depending on how you look at the time or how you be able to analyze the time ranges, you can spot the average. There will be a large chunk in the middle, and you can now spot the outliers and the drop-offs. And that's why this is important. It can help you understand why people are dropping off. You can now even now specifically segment people that are dropping off and then engage them as a marketing analyst and say, why are you not doing this? Then you can now provide that feedback to the product team and they can help optimize that particular product flow. It also helps you analyze and measure future product performance and adoption, right? So within a product, there will most likely be several features, right? And for a product, it's not all the features that drive value to the business, right? So it also helps you understand what features do people use before they go on to pay. If it's a premium type model or it's a premium app, right, that people would use for a couple of days, 7 day free trial, or they can use it but it's restricted before they now get to pay. Like you can tell what features do people like the most, what feature convinces people to pay for your app, right? And that way you can double down on those features, right, and optimize it. You can even also use to know features that you may not have at the moment, but users would like, right? You also use it to learn features that users are not using enough that you can sunset so that your engineering teams can even have more time to build new features that can even drive better value or even optimize the present features. And the most important feature, right, for product analytics is that it helps you identify what your model customer is, right? Say on the Fit Farm app, it's a monthly subscription-based app. You can also pay quarterly or yearly, right? The ideal customer will be somebody that downloads the app, will register, right? And post registration, they uh, start an exercise. After watching 2 or 3 exercises, they say, no, this app is good. I want to pay, right? They pay for their first month subscription and then they keep using the app, right? And they keep paying throughout their lifetime. They keep paying on a monthly basis and keep renewing and to the point where they even share it with their friends, right? So product analytics helps you understand ideal customer behavior, right? Like what customer behavior makes most sense for the business, right? Because customers can be erratic, right? But you also want to know the model customers. That way, you can even further optimize your product journeys, your product flows, and all of these things in such a way that you meet the needs of the customer. And that way, an engaged customer is a customer that you can retain, right? Because a customer that comes in every day contributes to product metrics like DAUs, like daily active users, weekly active users, monthly active users, right? And if a customer is engaged with your products and they enjoy using it every day, they use your app every day, and in the event that it's a paying app and they can pay for it, they will most likely pay for it because they use it, right? And if they see enough value for it, they will use it, right? And they will pay for it at the same time. So it's important that you have data that helps you identify and understand what your model customer is so that you can now use that as a sort of control group for other users and try to get more and more users to behave like your model customers, because that's also a good hack, right? Because it's your model customers that will help you scale and they'll also help you grow and help you make more money as a business. And it's also important to be data driven. Like you have to have the analyst mindset, and you also have to have a growth mindset when you're using product analytics, right? Because it's important that as you're measuring, right, you are using data. Data is at the center of every decision that you're trying to make. Um, Data is also very important, right? You're not just saying, oh, people don't like this feature, or a couple of people don't like it. You have actual data on users dropping off on a particular feature, or users using a particular feature and not reusing it again because you are measuring their events. You can see from the events that users are not starting this event in this feature. They are not really doing anything in this feature at all. And that way, you can now look at the product flow and say, is this a visibility problem? Is this a value problem? Or is this a broken flow problem? You know, that way you are able to arrive at, would I say, better decisions or better hypothesis. Not hypothesis, you know what is plural? That I'll say the plural, but you're able to make better hypotheses, right? And make better calculated guesses to say, this is the plausible reason why these users are not doing this thing, because you actually have data, and you just don't have data, you have information, and from that you can actually get insights that can help you make better decisions. So you also need to have that data-driven mindset that before I do this thing, before I make up my mind on this thing, like I need to have like adequate data, I need to have relevant data, and then when I have this data, this is what I want from this data, and this is what I want to be able to do with this data, and this is the recommendation. That also helps, even when writing uh, new requirements, when giving feedback to other stakeholders, and when trying to optimize product flows or product designs and all of that within products. And uh, getting answers right. Uh, it's important, right, that you know how to get answers with product analytics, right? Um, there, I have just four reports here, right? Four different type of, would I say, reporting strategy or analytics strategy or analytics visualization that can provide insight into user behavior, right? Um, Event report, for example. So I wish I could show you some sample event reports, right? But then again, maybe with subsequent Treford masterclasses and bootcamps, right, we'll be able to go more detailed, right, into uh, um, these reports and how to build them and how to generate them and how to get insights from them, right? Getting answers again, you can also look at product funnels. So product funnels sort of help us know how people move within our products, right? From registration to when they pay or what they do, their flow, their behavior within the app, right? Or within the product or even the website as well. It helps us know the drop-offs. Um, User flows also let us specifically User flows also specifically allows us now follow users and to see how they behave on the app, right? Some users are erratic. Some people might start something, they might go to the end to come back to the beginning again. That's fine, right? It just helps us know how users interact with the app. And retention analysis or cohort analysis, right? This is super important if it's a subscription-based business or if it's an e-commerce type business. You also want to measure returning customers. You want to measure how many people are retained, right? And it's not just in terms of payments. You also want to use it to measure valuable metrics like LTV, like lifetime value, and you also want to see how long are users engaging with your product, right? So let's say with retention analysis, for example, you can put your users in cohorts, right? And say people that joined in January, as at February, only 50% of them are still active. As at March, only 10% of them are still active. As at April, it's just 5% of them that are just active. So you can see that that's a great churn in active users, for example, but you are looking at it in cohorts and in the context of retention. So you might now want to start drilling down to find out why out of the 100 people we had in January, only 50 people came back in February. What happened to the remaining 50? This is what product analytics helps you do. It also helps you measure and follow a lot of things. So that way you're tracking and you're constantly following up with everything that drives value for your business and for the product. Okay, I see. So identify. So I wasn't, to be clear, right? I wasn't talking about customer models. I was talking about model customers. Like by model customer, I mean the type of user that you have on your product that you want other users to emulate, right? So say me personally, I've been using, say, Spotify Premium for 5 years now, right? And I pay month on month, right? So a lot of other Spotify users, for example, I would be a model customer because I'm the type of customer that Spotify would like because I keep using the app and I keep paying every month. They don't like it's that type of behavior that you want everybody on the app to behave. Because if everybody using the app behaves like that and they keep paying and they keep using, the app will continue to grow, not just in the number of people using it, but also in revenue because people are using it and they are paying for it. So that's what I meant by model customers. It helps you know the model behavior. Without analytics, you would absolutely be unable to know your model customers. And it's important for every business to know the model customer, to know the expected behavior, right? And then measure it, analyze it, and then try to, not do everything for that model customer, but try to, nudge, market, use product-led growth to make other users behave like the model customer. Yeah. That there. First one is how do you optimize user onboarding using data, right? So it's important, right? Again, how many user actions do users have to take when they are onboarding? What's your product flow for onboarding? Do you use OTP, for example? What's the sign up process like? Do you use like SSO, like single sign on, like with Google? These processes or these steps or these touch points that are in your onboarding, in your product flow, right? How many possible actions is there for users to take? And you have to specifically track all the individual events, all the individual actions in these steps at event. Then you now set up path or a flow or a product flow that allows you to see how users go from step one to step two, from step two to step three, and from step three to step four. So in your onboarding process, if there's 4 possible steps for the users, you want to track each of those steps as events, and then you don't want to see how people move from step one to step two to step three. If the biggest difference is from step two to step three, you might want to look at the product flow. Is it that people are not getting some sort of metrics? Is it that people are not receiving OTP? Is it that people are not able to complete sign up? Is there a back-end failure? But fundamentally, that is how you would would I say that is how you would optimize onboarding. tracking all the actions in that step, in that particular onboarding journey, right? And then measuring the data and then visualizing it and say you can use a product flow, or you can use product funnel or user flows, and you see how users interact through each of the following steps. I hope I've been able to answer that. Second question is, I'll need more clarification on product funnel and user flows. 1 second. Let me see if I can find I have a visualization on the both of them that shows a clear difference. Just 1 second. And just to know, right, the report is not just limited to this, right? There are others as well. Can you see my screen? Yeah. So as you can see, product funnels, you can see from start to end, it starts to drop. It can be this way or it can be inverted. Like this one is up, down. Another one can be down, up. I don't know if you guys get what I'm trying to say. Like it can be facing up or down for product funnels. For event reports, it just shows you how many times users trigger the particular report, event, right? Which events users trigger the most, shows it like this. For user flows, it helps you see where people start and end their journeys, like how they move between your apps, right? You can see it's like a snake-like motion. And then for retention analysis, it helps you see when people joined and how many of them you are able to retain over time, right? I hope that this visualization is able to help a bit. Can you help? Yes, I think one of them, I will still talk about tools, right? One of them is from Mixpanel, right? It's just a screenshot. But yes, Mixpanel, Amplitude, there are lots and lots and lots of product analytics tools, right? So you also want to, as I've said, right, it's important to look at your product flow, right? What actions the users take on the app. So Jumia Food, Uber Eats, right? It means I download the app, I registered, right? First step is I want to know how many people registered on their app. Other things that you want to collect in registration, is it the products that I have to pay? Like, do I have to pay on the app or first, right? Do I have to add my card details? Do I also have to add my delivery address, for example, right? So all of these things are, if they are part of the onboarding, you want to measure all of these as individual events, right? And say when they now even have the app, you also want to track events like order made, right? Restaurant viewed, like say you have restaurant catalogs on your app, for example, like on Jumia Food, for example, right? Maybe I look at Chicken Republic. I'm just looking at what Chicken Republic has, right? You also want to know what restaurant I like the most, for example, right? So you want to look at other events like restaurants viewed. You want to know what type of food I order the most, right? Food ordered, right? As I'm explaining this, I'm quickly going to touch base on attributes. So when you're tracking user data, right, you're collecting user data like first name, last name, email, payment card details, delivery address for this particular Jumia Food use case, right? That's user data. That's my personal data that's giving your product. Now, event data is now like, what am I doing on the product? I'm trying to order food, right? I'm looking at restaurants. Now, attributes or event properties will now be things that are like adjectives, right? They give more context or they give more meaning. So they describe something better. So let's say the event is order made. The attributes that will come under that event now can be uh, amount, right? That's for the order I made. How much is everything, right? What type of food did I order, right? What is the name of the restaurant that I ordered from? And you might also want to track stuff like completed order, like when my order made and when my order was completed and when my order was delivered, right? So all of these events are events that matter to you if you are using this type of app, and you really have to go over your product design from beginning to end and start tracking the events that matter or the user actions that matter. Now, Chika says, I hope I've been able to answer the question, Anonymous. Um, so I'm going to start. So with the number of data tracking softwares available, is it entirely necessary for a PM to learn how to deeply use spreadsheets or SQL? How to use spreadsheets? Yes, I think it's a basic. Whether you're a product manager, anything you are, like in these work environments now, you should be able to use a spreadsheet. Like you should be able to really use a spreadsheet regardless of what you're doing. Maybe product designers, right? But for any other type of job that requires like decision making, insight, and sort of looking at stuff, then you should be able to use a spreadsheet. SQL, not so much, right? Because I think that if you're in a very robust team where you have um, data analyst and a data team, they'll be able to assist you with queries, right? But it's important that you yourself you're able to play around with spreadsheets, Google Sheets, clean data, and draw simple insights, simple reports from those spreadsheets in such a way that you're able to now write recommendations and say, based on this, and this is what we're going to do. Akinade says, would you recommend taking data analysis to a course to becoming a budding product manager? Is this something that can be easily learned on the job? I think that data analytics in this context is a skill, right? It's a tool that you use in your job as a product manager. I think that if, as a product manager, it's more important to stay on the path and focus on product management, right? In the course of your dispensation as a product manager, I wouldn't say that this is something that can be easily learned on the job, but I would say that if you are willing and you are able to sort of learn, you would pick up some of the necessary analytics skills that would make you a better product manager. Remember, you're not trying to become a data analyst. You are a product manager, but you have to use data to make better decisions. So it's always good to stay on our path because we are also in an era of information overload where everybody wants to be a data scientist. Everybody wants to be a product manager. Everybody wants to be this. And you find out somebody, you're doing DevOps, you're doing product management, you're doing product marketing. It's good to just pick a struggle and say, I want to be a PM, right? But as a PM, I also have to be able to manipulate and analyze and clean some data. So perhaps the data skills that you need as a PM is not as rigorous and is not as technical, but you still need a lot of data skills to be able to become a better or a world-class product manager. Can these analytics issues help solve challenges faced by fintech companies, especially fraud and chargeback issues? I think there's a where I think there's a behavioral pattern. To a very large extent, yes. And I know for a fact that some of these companies have been able to deploy some sort of events or user tracking to sort of effectively measure this, right? When it comes to fraud and stuff, really like behavior is is difficult to track and it's even difficult to monitor because people are now actively going against your system to figure out a way to hack it, right? So I know that yes, with events tracking, you can measure how many people have successfully requested a chargeback, how many people request a chargeback, how many times has it been done, how many times has somebody's account been flagged for fraudulent practices. All of those things are important. And with the help of like big data analytics and machine learning, you can even predict the likelihood of somebody frauding your system if you have already been able to collect data on model customers. That way, you can now like run machine learning and say, this is how people are supposed to behave. This is how they are not supposed to behave. So anybody that has a likelihood or a high chance of behaving a certain way would be flagged. So at high level, it can solve some of these problems, and with machine learning and data science as well, you can even predict the likelihood of a customer doing some certain things. But again, this requires a lot of technical infrastructure, warehousing, and a lot of that, right? So I understand that a lot of companies also face some of these challenges over here as well. Chika, as a PM, what North Star metrics is important to measure for a product? So I think it's a business that determines the North Star metric, right? As a PM, you can't just stay in your seat and say, this is North Star metric, right? You would be making a great mistake. You are only employed as a product manager because the business is trying to make money. That's how they are able to pay you a salary if you think about it like that. So you have to think about what North Star metrics make sense for the business. For Fit Farm app, right? Let's say we can say a North Star metric can be daily active exercisers, right? Let me put it like that. So how many people perform exercise on a daily basis, right? Because we know that once people perform the exercise, they are more likely to pay us. So we can be tracking that. I used to work in a company where, in an hotel booking company where the North Star metric was room night, right? How many people are booking room night, right? So again, right, remember, as a product manager, you are just one piece of a large puzzle in an organization, right? There are business people, there are marketing people, there are data people, there are customer success people, there are a lot of other people, and all of these people make up the business, right? And it's a combination of this, would I say, all of these efforts that we can now say this is what this metric is important for the business. So in that says, what is a North Star metric? I'm just going to try to take it apart like that. So a metric basically is a, what would I say, a standard unit of measurement, say kilogram, right? That's a metric, right? So in product or in product management, for example, or in product marketing, a metric can be conversion rate, right? A metric can be registration. It's just a unit of measurement. How do you measure something like an action or an event or an object, right? And North Star, like if you have a compass, right? And I know like some of us have some military experience, right? So if you have a compass, right, it's the direction is always like sort of facing the north, right? When you hold it properly, it points you to the north, right? If you know how to use it properly, right? So the North Star metric is a metric or a unit of measurements that everybody in an organization is following or is chasing, because it makes sense for everybody to follow that particular metric. So you have a compass in your hand and it's pointing, the north is pointing in a particular direction. That's the only part of a compass that has an arrow. It's always pointing in a particular way. So you have a compass that's pointing in a particular way, and you're like, this is the particular way the whole company is going, and that's the North Star metric. That's the metric that is important to everybody, right, in the business. And that's basically what the North Star metric is. It's just a unit of measurement that is important for everybody and is a priority for everybody in a product or in a business. That's what a North Star metric is. Yeah. So I'm just going to go over some tools for product analytics. I know that a lot of people here already mentioned some. Off the top of my head, I would say the single most important tool for any sort of product analytics now, in line with what's happening with global practices, GDPR, privacy protection, because you just can't start collecting user data anyhow, right? You just really can't start collecting user data. You can collect user actions, but you can't collect user data because this information is personal and is not really shareable. So a starter pack for me, I would say Google Analytics, right? Google Analytics has two variants or two products. There's Universal Analytics and there's Google Analytics 4, right? These are uh, great product analytics tools, especially Google Analytics 4, right? It helps you, it gives you insights not just into users, it gives you insights into events and attributes, and you can also use it for cross-domain tracking. So say you have a website, you have an Android app, you have a web app, and you have an iOS app. You can effectively track what users are doing across all these platforms. Say I was using an iPhone before, my iPhone got missing and I now downloaded the Android version of the app, right? Since I already have a user ID tied to my account, you will be able to see all of that transition. You'll be able to see behaviors per platform, say how Android users behave, how iOS users behave, how web users behave, and also what happens on your website or on landing pages. So Google Analytics 4 sort of tries to give you an overview into all of that. And even if you have multiple domains, say you have a lot of subdomains that you have for features or sub products as well, right? It will give you insight into um, uh, all of the things that users can possibly do on your app, right? So say for product analytics, a great starter pack is Google Analytics, right? Google Tag Manager also helps you tag certain actions, and it also helps you record user actions, right? Then we can now go into like other core analytics tools. We have mixed panel, there's HIP, uh, there's amplitude, we have a lot of other ones, web engage, Marketo, a lot of what I say, CRMs, right? CRM tools and Firebase as well. Thanks for pointing that out, right? Firebase is basically a Google product as well. So um, Firebase is like Google's proprietary product for like Android and measurement and all of that. But yes, Firebase as well, right? It's also somewhat free. So yeah. Um, we have a lot of other ones as well. A lot of CRM tools nowadays, right, can also do some sort of product analytics, right? Any tool that allows you to track events, you can use it for product analytics because it gives you more insight about what users are doing on your app. Um, uh, what other tools have I left out? And then you have like heatmap tools as well, right? For website, like I think Crazy Egg, Heap as well. These heat maps sort of I don't know if you've seen what an infrared map looks like. Like for us, for a lot of people that watch football, right? Or you play games, for example, after a football match, you would see they show it map where they show the concentration of play. So the red part is where the players spent the most time on the pitch over the course of 90 minutes. The yellow part is where they didn't spend plenty time over the course of 90 minutes. The green part is where it's kind of like infrared. Like when you try to use an infrared image to look at something, it shows you where the heat is. Yeah, it shows you where the heat is concentrated, right? So that's what, yeah, gain sight as well. That's what heat maps do for you. It helps you see where the heat is packing on your product. Like you might be putting a button in the wrong place and people are just not using it. They're just like you're just wasting real estate on some of your websites and some of your apps because every piece of screen that you're using to uh, that you push to your users, you expect them to take actions on each particular screen on every page that they visit, right? So you might be wasting real estate by not using its maps to see what users are interacting the most, what they like the most, and where they spend their most time, right? Someone asked me, what are you asking me like what product analytics tools do I use presently? Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Um, at the moment, I use I use quite a lot. At the moment, I have Firebase, Universal Analytics, and Google Analytics 4. I also use a tool called Web Engage. I have Adjust. Adjust is a mobile measurement partner, right? But it's not really for product analytics, but it also helps measure an attribute. And CX, I think CX Cam, that sort of gives us some sort of heat map, um, heat map view on all of these things as well. Yeah. Is there a way you can reach out to me personally? You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm going to drop my name here so that you can uh, just reach out to me. If you need, I mean, I may not be. I'll try to be responsive, right? Um, but I'm dropping my link here for anyone that is interested in reaching out. Um, So you can always reach out to me with questions or if I have insights, I will share. If I don't know, I'll say, let's go and Google it together. But I'm always willing to help. And uh, for insights, for questions, for tools, you can always talk to me. And also for some of these tools, I've also used some of them before, like Mixed Panel, Amplitude. They all seem to have the same type of flow. As long as you're passing the events correctly, you'll be able to get insights from them. Um, well, for today's session, I would say that I know product analytics it's relatively new and it's an application based path, right? And believe me, it's complex, right? Because it takes like data analytics, product management, and some growth hacking for you to sort of become like a product analyst, right? And it's also important to know that this is just the first step, right? There is more to come. and there's a lot more to learn, like hands-on learning in terms of like how to do these things, how to even use this mixed panel, this amplitude. Like let's even see it, let's put data inside, let's do all of that. So again, it's more in the doing, and you stand to gain more from like subsequent practical hands-on led sessions and boot camps, because that's where you'll now be able to see, implement, and build on whatever you've gained here today. And also you'll be able to do it by yourselves, like in person, without anybody trying to over you. Um, yeah, that's it, right? And then again, right, it's also something that don't really beat up yourself, right? Because it's something that it takes time and practice, right, before you will become really, really good at any form of analytics in the first place, right? And again, over time, as we continue to interact, I encourage you guys to look for products, look for knowledge, right, or online, on YouTube, anywhere, and just the more you interact with this part, the more you get conversant with what to do and how to apply it on your jobs and for real life use cases.